Any questions? Yes, Ian.
Very quick question. Guy, fantastic, and what wonderful work with colleagues and enabling people to do their jobs better and raising morale. How much planning do you have for the future once the soldiers have returned to be out there and helping the civilians rebuild their lives as well?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We are involved quite a lot, as you can imagine, in seeing where army musicians can play a role in countries. You talked about Bosnia and the rifles, or the Green Jackets, I think.
Jackets, yeah.
I've been to Bosnia in 2001, 2002. Iraq, we have had bands there. Afghanistan is tough because it is still a really dangerous place. At Helmand province, you fly everywhere. If you have to go by road, you do. But certainly, I think we are looking to always be able to go back and support, as we certainly did within Bosnia. But as you can imagine, although we wear green and have rifles, it's still they have to weigh up the practicalities of when is it actually safe enough to go in. Northern Ireland was a good example. We did a lot in Northern Ireland within the communities, bringing the Catholic Protestant communities together within the schools, within the towns, and actually that's the model that we would like to be able to take forward for future.
Any more questions? Yes.
I think you've probably answered my question already by what you said, but did you find always that the music was transcultural, that whoever your audience was would take it on okay?
Yeah, well, certainly, when we played in the cookhouses and the restaurants, certainly the cookhouses, we had more of the locals there, and we had civilian workers from other countries that were employed. And definitely, it does break those barriers. It does, I think, you don't need to be able to speak their language. Certainly, in my experience as a military musician, you don't need to speak their language, and vice versa, for you to have a connection. And we had the Afghani musicians playing one night in the cookhouse. We went and played another night. We went to theirs. They came to ours. And we all had a mutual, sort of understanding and enjoyment of what was being done. Certainly.
More questions? Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Hi.
I just wanted to point something out, perhaps, as musicians, you've probably forgotten. I'm actually an acute emergency nurse frontline, but you're not only musicians and soldiers second, but as a third role, you also support medical professionals. And I think that's something that, as civilians, we don't know about. So I'd like to thank you also, as a musician and as a medical nurse, for all the support that you give us on the front line and in disaster zones as well.
Thank you.
Yes, question over there. Back to the right, yes.
Hi, this is a question for Nigel. Is that all right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just coming back to your presentation earlier and just wondered, based on the children you did music with, if there was any research going on, and is that a particular mission of yours to get more professionals involved in doing some psychological research and neuroscience as well, based on the experiences you've had?
Yes, it is. I mean, I think that our work was very much practice-led, and it needs its support now, particularly because we have quite a sophisticated dialogue with the medical services in particular, and I wish that dialogue to continue at the right level. Yes, we do want to encourage work in this area. One of the problems is that is to do it non-invasively for children. I don't want in any way to invade the lives of the children I work with, measuring things in ways that are invasive of them. That's the critical thing. I'm developing some technologies that might help me do that and might help us do more on the hoof research. The other thing that we're doing also and hoping to develop with the help of the Army actually is to, with soldier volunteers with trauma, to where we can measure and we can look at the effects of what we're doing. So we hope to develop that area more. So we're in a position of being way ahead in practice of our theory, and I would very much want the science to work with us would be tremendous. Right. Yes, question.
Thank you. Hello, this is for you, Nigel. Sorry, it's not me presenting anything, it's a question. You mentioned singing and the use of breath control. I'm a soprano and I live in North Yorkshire, and I'm about to start work with the Help for Heroes Rehabilitation Centre in Catterick. And I wondered if there was any specific research that has been done on the physiological effects of what I would call, in inverted commas, proper full body singing. So, because the intention is to combine singing as a backup to the physio that the guys are going through there.
Yes, there is some literature, and I can get it to you.
Brilliant, thank
not
you.
as much as there should be, but there is some. And please do that. I think singing is a fantastic thing. And also, for many people, it's not patronizing. It is not, it's a very human, dignified thing to do,
Yeah.
and a great thing to do. So please push on with that. And by the way, I have some links with the US military working in this area.
Excellent.
And an awful lot of singing and theatre and songwriting going on. Very, very successful. And I think we ought to pursue this very, very much. So I'll send some stuff and warm encouragement to
And I shall
bash on with
nobble
that.
you if you don't. Thank you.
Pleasure. 1 minute we have? Yes, 1 minute. I'd just like to ask a quick question. There's one. Sorry, there's one from the audience. I should not abuse my privilege.
Oh, no. David, I told you not to ask a question.
Yeah, difficult one for Guy, yeah. No, actually, it's for Nigel. Just a point about the forces going. I spent quite a lot of time in Bosnia and Kosovo and Afghanistan, and it's always come from the military pushing, from us, from musicians, pushing to involve ourselves in the communities. And I've worked in the Pavarotti Centre myself, but it took an awful lot of time and effort to get there. And there just seems to be a little engagement from the NGOs to actually want to have military musicians. And if we had that, and the sort of pull from NGOs, then I'm sure a lot more could happen. But they need to engage with the military authorities. We can't do it at our level so much. Is there anything afoot to actually make that happen in the future?
We really have to get talking about this. I mean, when we were lucky enough to have the green jackets, actually they visited the Pavarotti Centre, we were able to plug them straight into a massive schools program of creative work with children. They did a fantastic job, places like Ljubljana, Trebinje. So we had a context, and that worked very well. And I think what we're saying is we need to be working towards creating those contexts where you guys can go and immediately hit the ground running with the children in good situations, well prepared, so that you can use your skills to get it moving. Absolutely. There's a need for a coordination of this, because there's a huge potential. And us to say the effect of it in terms of public relations is huge, of course. If you get children going home from school smiling from a day working with some musicians, you then have a whole, won a lot of hearts at the same time. So yes, it needs the organisation, the structure. We've seen this. I mean, Ian will be witness to this. We've seen this work. We've had a great relationship. I think we just need to look at how we can construct this in the situations that the Army would wish to offer this facility. So it's a big discussion to be had in practical terms. Anything to say about that?
Well, as David is a colleague of mine, and we both have the same view that we should be involved very heavily with all of this sort of stuff. And it is tough from the musician's perspective, because if there's not a lot of evidence from a military perspective, then it's hard for us to actually make inroads into that. So I think certainly it's a double way it has to come for our involvement in it.
I'd be hugely optimistic about the success of that if the right structures go in place. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks very much.